Hey everyone, and welcome to this session of Precis Insights. In this talk, we're going to be breaking down how brands are rethinking traditional ad creative. We're seeing in 2025 that ads that look like ads aren't necessarily the ones that perform. So how can you look at this traditional formats, particularly Reels, and rethink how they work in your ad creative strategy? In this episode, we're joined by Rich from Meta and Minna from Precis. And before we jump into creative strategy, these creative geniuses are going to tell us what keeps them up at night.
I think from a marketing point of view, what keeps me up at night is like the pace of change at the moment. 25 feels like such a pivotal year with all the changes that are happening in technology. I'm excited to kind of stay on top of all those changes as they're happening with kind of the advancement of our platforms, how kind of AI is reshaping marketing as well. So there's so much excitement around that, and I think it keeps me up at night to do the work to keep up with the pace of the change.
I'm pretty much on the same track here. Like, I think the volume game, that's what, bothers me at night. I might wake up in the middle of the night and figuring out like, oh my God, I need to refresh so many ads on specific client. Yeah, finding the volume and versatility, that's definitely the challenge.
Yeah, so I think some of the big changes that are happening, especially across Meta platforms, is the way creative and media are working much closer together. So instead, if you kind of roll back a few years, we were thinking about kind of niche media targeting and thinking about interest groups. Now, all that is going to be done by the machine learning. It's all kind of done by the algorithm. So there's a huge opportunity to really dig into creative that resonates much more closely to what people want. And your point around people don't want to watch ads, they don't want to have that interruptive ad experience. They want something that feels more personal to them. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is helping brands understand Reels. So this is a huge growing surface across Facebook and Instagram, and it inherently feels much more relatable, much more human in how it's showing up. And we're kind of educating brands on how to show up and use the language of Reels to communicate their marketing messages.
Kind of echo what Rich was just saying, that interest targeting or targeting in general is basically dead these days. So how you target, how you approach is you go into the literally shoes of the audiences. You try to understand really how they use the platform, how they behave, what do they like, what makes them tick and what makes them drive, and really figure out how to create content that resonates with them. Something that sits to that moment where they come across your ad and really fits the mindset, fits the behavior, fits each different platform within Meta, for example. Like, how do you behave within Reels or versus how do you behave within Facebook feed ad? Like, there is so many nuances to take into consideration. And if you manage to really go deep down, that's how you make an impact. A lot of research, a lot of questions, a lot of reading, a lot of data digging. AI helps hugely these days. It's a gold mine for information. Instead of going down to platforms like Reddit to really understand what people do and how do they behave, you can use different large language models to figure out some overarching themes for you. You can talk to Meta, for example. They have endless amount of research and insight on their customers and the behavior. And then you just got to combine all of this information to create different kind of segments and clusters of the audiences to make it work.
So I think, first, the great thing for me and for my creative team is that creative has never been as important as it is now. And I think when we're going and meeting with senior stakeholders at all the clients that we work with, the first thing we're telling them is creative is the new targeting. So that is a huge and freeing opportunity for brands. And then you can start to dig into some of the points that Minna's making. Like, if you know that creative is the new targeting, how do you design specific messages for certain audiences? If you've got a big kind of campaign thought, how do you translate that to reach a younger audience versus an older audience versus an audience that's into gaming versus an audience that's into fashion? And I just think there's a huge amount of opportunity to be unlocked through that kind of creative approach. And then I guess secondary to that, once you are kind of in these dialogue with brands, you can start to think about how they translate their core brand strategy, that organizing thought, into platform first content. And that's when all these insights become so valuable to kind of connect with different audiences. I think we're spending a lot of time working with creators, but the challenge that we're facing, not only for us as Meta, but thinking across all the tech platforms, is we need ever more content. And it feels like when you're speaking, especially speaking to creative teams, and I'm saying you need to feed the algorithm with more and more creative, they're like, oh, this is a lot of work. But the creator ecosystem helps you unlock this. So if you've got a really strong idea, creators can help you realize that. I think it's super interesting to see this transition from influencer to creator. So it's, instead of it being an influencer saying, buy this product, it's much more around partnering with lots of different micro creators and makers that can help you tell your brand story in different ways. So I think this is a fascinating topic. I could go deep on this. If you are kind of looking at creators and makers as a production arm, then you can tap into their strength. And the brands and the creative agencies can figure out great creative strategy that is then executed by creators. Because, like, looping it around to the first point, they're the ones that understand platform language more than anyone else. They're the ones that are building an audience around their creative craft, their edit skills, their CGI, their Gen AI, whatever it might be. So yeah, I think that's a super interesting place to play.
That's always the tough question, because I feel like brand guidelines have been there, such a steady player for a really long time. So a lot of brands really like it. It's like a holy book that guides everything that you're doing. However, with the nowadays modern landscape where everything is changing and shifting, and you gotta be more and more authentic than ever before, like, you need to find as a brand the way to be balanced between your brand guidelines and between giving freedom for creativity. Because if you just keep on hugging on the brand guidelines too tightly, it's going to be extremely difficult to really get that authenticity going on. If you're working with creators, for example, you need to find how to have your brand messaging baked into the creator process itself. So, of course, your brand needs to be there, but it needs to be there a new way, in a way that it hasn't before. So you find like a gold nuggets of your brand, how to tailor it in this specific campaign and how to roll it out in a more native way so that it feels natural to the platforms, but also for the creators themselves. But yeah, brand needs to be there, but in ways that it hasn't before.
Yeah, and I love everything you said there. So I think it is a kind of a process of letting go of that control around the rigid brand guidelines. But I think because we're so focused on growing the language of Reels and thinking about the behaviors we see there, we want to make sure that the content is, like, first we want it to be entertaining. Like, what's the entertainment value of this piece of content? Then, is it relatable enough? Like, do people understand this? Is it easy to understand? Is the kind of the next thing we're thinking about. But once you've kind of entertained people, then you can try and weave your brand ethos into that. So I think letting go a little bit of the more rigid parts of your brand book, but then thinking about what are your core brand pillars that you can organize around to design Reels content. And I appreciate this is a bit of a journey. Some brands are really taking the lead in this space and jumping in headfirst into creator and social first content. Others, it's more of a journey. But I think with those, I guess, bigger and more traditional brands that we work with, we can show them like the value of human presence and kind of having like human contact in the ad. That's going to be really effective. Then you can think about more social first ways to introduce your brand colors. So maybe it's kind of a branded environment that you're inviting a creator into. So that could be a way to express your brand. And then another topic, which is also really, really interesting, is thinking about sound and audio. Reels are now 93% sound on. And so there's a huge creative opportunity. Yeah, I mean, it's a a fascinating time because I've been at Meta for many years and I've spent many years saying sound off, sound off, sound off. Now it's sound on, and sound is a huge creative opportunity. So yeah, it's more than 90% of reels consume sound on. And I think it's a huge opportunity to express who you are as a brand through the audio. And I don't want to take us back to the world of like radio jingles, but I think if you think about the kind of audio creators and sound trends that are bubbling up across Instagram, how can you be inspired by that as a brand and use that as a way to communicate your ideas? So yeah, very interesting place to play. And my team runs sound workshops with brands, which is really, really fun and gets quite philosophical when you're kind of working with a big brand and you say, what does your brand sound like? That you get some interesting responses.
Audio branding is super big, so I totally agree with everything you've said. In my creative team, Precis, we have a couple of really excited and inspiring audio designers who always get excited whenever we actually did an ad a while ago for a client where we literally wanted to write a more social media friendly jingle, and it ended up being actually one of the top performing ads in the category. So that was an extremely fun project to do. And it also proves that the landscape changes and audio is back. Like audio branding is becoming as huge as visual branding or any other branch of branding. Definitely.
Yeah, so I think there's a big opportunity around audio, as we've mentioned, but I think a specific part of this is thinking about what is the creative hook to your ad. So we know that we've got to be entertaining and relatable when we're showing up in reels, but we also know that the behavior is still quite fast. How can you land your idea in the first 2, 3, 4 seconds and then kind of persuade people to stay through that entertaining content value? So audio can be a part of this. So thinking about like using music or sound effects or trending audio to be disruptive and capture attention. But you can also think about like visual trends as well. So like thinking about edit techniques, transitions. I mean, that's another fascinating topic. Like as a brand, what are those ownable transitions that you can bake into how you show up in social? Like being inspired by what creators are doing and then thinking about how you kind of express yourself as a brand through transition styles, another interesting area. And then on top of that, you've got the kind of the people focused experience as well. So like showing a human within the first couple of seconds, that kind of eye contact is really important to make a connection. And then the last piece of thinking about creative hooks is text hooks. So we see a lot of success from brands when they overlay their video ads with a piece of Instagram native type. So not only does it look like it's part of a piece of content that a person would post on Instagram, it enables you to introduce your brand in a more platform native way as well. So here we can start to show up and really use the way that people are talking in social. So like the kind of the obvious one is, how do you write a POV as a brand, or how do you talk around hype as a brand, or all this more kind of social trending language. You can bake that into a text hook and then connect it back to your brand.
Yeah, definitely. Also, what I've learned is calling out your audience as a first thing that works super well. Like you can literally write like, hey, you, whatever your audience segment is, and if you combine that again with an audio and then go with the quick transitions, that is extremely strong. Because when you're calling out specifically like, hey, you girl with the red head, I like immediately identify yourself in that call out when it fits you or your personality or your hobby or your however you see yourself. And that is something, that's how you make the connection. Like you make the person you want to talk to the star of your ad. And that's literally one way to do it. Like making that, opening up the hook in a way. So yeah, people love to see themselves.
Yeah, we have on that point, we have a case study with a shampoo brand, which I think really speaks to that point, because the opening is a creator speaking directly to camera, and she says, hey, do you have stringy hair? And I don't really know what stringy hair is, but like if you are like part of the stringy hair community, that ad speaks to you instantly and you're locked in to view the rest of it. So being very much audience focused and community led with your language is a great way to capture attention.
Absolutely. I've talked about this many times, I feel like in the past couple of weeks, but a lot of brands, they, especially when you start advertising, that you tend to tell the audiences about yourself and your product, like, hey, I'm a great brand and I have amazing products. But if you want to actually appeal to your audiences, they don't really care about who you are as a brand or what you're selling. They want to know how your brand and how your products can actually help you. It's more a matter of twisting or turning the narrative from your brand and your products to your customers instead. Like, this product will make your day much better, rather than saying we have a great product. There's a huge difference of how audience perceives that kind of messaging. So absolutely. Also using creators, really doing that and doing the advocacy towards the audience-centric way. That's the key.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We need more content to feed the machine. But I think a way to frame this is to think about, instead of leading, about a system of ideas. So how can you express your idea in lots of different ways for lots of different people? So this is an approach that we really encourage with the brands we're working with. So more content, it all should ladder back to that same brand ethos or thought at the middle of it. But how do you then kind of deliver lots of different content that's going to speak to lots of different audiences? And another, I guess, part of this is to tap into the powers of the platform to iterate on that piece of content. So say you have 5 reels that are designed for 5 specific audiences, and you designed this one to reach the older male audience, but it's actually working really well for a younger female audience. How can you iterate on that? Or like, what are the specific people that are responding that? And that's a learning that you can build your next round of creative. So I think having this test and learn mindset should be part of that creative process. It's amazing how many brands are not adopting this. They think when the campaign goes live, that's their job done. But there are so many learnings to be had from seeing who is resonating with the creative that you put out there. Is it working as you thought it would, or are there ways you can twist it in a different direction?
Absolutely agree. Creative testing and bringing in those learnings, that's the only way you can actually stay in the game. If you don't evolve, if you don't actually analyze the data that you have, if you don't look into the performance and bring it with you, then that's all going to come crashing down and it's going to lay down flat. That's why it's extremely important to have that feedback loop, making sure that whatever your media team sees, what your social media team sees, what your strategist sees, goes into the creative team, and whatever creative team is doing, that goes back to your media team, so that it becomes a whole circle where you can just all learn and bring things to the next level as a one cohesive, circle of happiness.
Yeah, so obviously, like, AI is advancing at this incredible pace, and there seems like there's something new happening every week. So it's very exciting. But I think there are lots of use cases for AI that are maybe not having a light shined upon them. What you see in your LinkedIn feed is a lot of generative AI from those platforms, and a lot of people experimenting with the look, the execution. But I think there are other elements that we can explore using AI as an ideation tool, and inspiring your creative agencies, and using large language models as a sparring partner to untap insights. I think this is something that we should dig into even more, really speeding up that process. And instead of being, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a creative team in a creative agency, they're often given insights and then they have to spin an idea up out of nothing. I think if you can be inspired by trends, like what's happening on Instagram, like this is where culture is happening, this is where things are bubbling up. So how can we interpret trends and put a brand spin on it? And then you're using AI as a creative partner to help you find those insights and turn them into kind of actionable creatives. Then that's super powerful as well. So the short answer on this is I don't think every single visual and video we see in social media should be created by AI, but I think it should be in the backgrounds, helping creative teams with that process, and then helping inform briefs for designers, for creators, and kind of helping feed that machine with lots of different kinds of creative, essentially. So super exciting. from creative, from media, but also thinking about it more broadly than just the executional value of it.
Absolutely. Like AI is just another tool to bring into your marketing box. Like it can do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to alleviating manual work. And like I mentioned earlier, the research part, it makes it so much quicker than what it used to be a year ago or 3 years ago for a strategist or anybody who wants to know anything about their customers or world or whatnot. But besides having AI do a lot of heavy lifting on manual work, I love the opportunities that is bringing like all kinds of cool things and whole new worlds within like smaller marketing budgets. Like nowadays you can just conjure up a dragon or come up with an explosion without having to explode anything for real. Like you can have AI do all of that for you. The storytelling opportunities is so much more wider now than what it used to be. You don't have to rely on CGI or explosives experts. You have AI to do little things like that. I'm not saying bring it to every single creative, but where there is a place for a dragon, bring in a dragon. That's my advice for everybody.
Yeah, and also I think it gives the opportunity to diversify your creative as well. So we're talking a lot about having a lot of different creative and kind of being very audience-led. There are some audiences that really are inspired by generative AI. So let's have a piece of generative AI maybe made by a creator that you put out as part of your campaign. But maybe there are other people that you're trying to reach that are more inspired by a different trend. Maybe it's stop frame animation and you work with someone that's building something that's very craft-led. Or maybe there are other parts of your audience that are inspired by people. So having real people that feel very authentic alongside that. And I think if you were to design a campaign which featured personality-first creators and then makers that are building in stop frame and an AI artist, that's a great way to diversify. And you're kind of like feeding the algorithm with lots of different styles of content. So it can help you in that way.
Okay, that's all for today from Minna and from Rich. Thank you so much for your time today. But there was a lot that we covered here. And what are the 3 things we want you to come away with after today? The first, if it feels like an ad, you've already lost them. The second, test something new. Try a new format. Don't just stick with what's tried and true. Number 3, don't pixel push. Trust your creators and don't be the ones that constrict everything within your brand. So we hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to learn more, please subscribe to our channel for more insights. Bye.